What a week one of games this was. It was a great Sunday of football. We're going to jump right into this. We're going to be breaking down all the games that happened this Sunday. And we're going to start with this Dolphins versus Colts game. Really a blowout from the get-go. The Colts jumped all over them, and they didn't let up. 33-8 that's a beatdown. And I had the Colts winning this one, but I'll be 100% honest, I did not see this coming. The Dolphins just looked bad. I've been talking all offseason, their fans disagreed, but I've been talking all offseason about a potential Dolphins implosion, and I don't know if I call it a full implosion, but I think we're trending that way. This was absolutely horrible for the Dolphins. Not to discredit the Colts. Colts played great game plan. They took care of the ball. They played smart football, and they got the job done. I mean, the Dolphins kept turning the ball over. Plenty of turnovers. Fumble, a couple picks. The Colts were efficient. They were smart with the ball. They were efficient both through the air and on the ground. Daniel Jones looked great. He looked very smart. Only 7 incompletions. He had a passing touchdown and a couple rushing touchdowns. They looked great. Colts looked very good. If I'm a Dolphins fan, this is a horrible sign. Personally, from an outsider's perspective, I'm not a Dolphins fan. I thought this was going to be a rough year for the Dolphins from the get-go. But I think now that kind of confirms it's going to be a tough time. They have talent. They do. And when you have talent, you can definitely win some games, even some games that are unexpected. But they're not making the playoffs this year. The Colts, I wouldn't expect them to make a wild card, but they could compete for the AFC South this year. I wouldn't put it past them. But let's move on to the next game, Cardinals versus Saints. This one worked out for me. I had the Cardinals winning, and I had the Cardinals covering the 6.5-point spread, which they did. They won by 7. But I did expect it to be a bit more of a blowout than it was. The Saints hung around, and I credit that both to the Saints and both to the Cardinals missing some opportunities. I think the Cardinals played great. They should have won by more. They didn't, that's the end of the story, but I think they should have won by more. They had a missed field goal, or was it blocked? One or the other. I think they definitely could have won by more. They're definitely the better team. The Saints are not good. I feel like I didn't learn that much from this game, though. I think I learned that the Saints aren't great, and I knew that. And the Cardinals looked solid, but didn't blow them out. So it's like, that's kind of the same old Cardinals. So I don't know. I didn't learn enough from this game. It was kind of it followed the line. They're favored by 6.5. They won by 7. So nothing groundbreaking here. Looking more to see something from these teams next week, especially the Cardinals, to get more of a bearing on where they are. And then moving on, Jets Steelers. What a game. What a game, man. If you told me there was going to be a game that was 34-32 and I could go through guesses which one it was going to be, this would be maybe the last one on the list, because Jets Steelers sounds like a game that ends 17-14, and that's what I kept seeing everyone predict that. And I agreed. I had the Jets winning this one 20-17. And a lot of people give me some hate for picking the Jets in that one, but I think the Jets really had a chance. They squandered their opportunities. Really, the fumble on the kickoff is what did them in, because they gave up that touchdown. They were still up 31-26, fumbled the kickoff, and it all went downhill from there. They were up 26 to I'm forgetting the score, but they were still up by a score. They were receiving a kickoff after a Steelers touchdown, and they fumbled the kickoff. Steelers ended up scoring on that drive, and it was rough from there for the Jets. But the Jets looked great. I really like the Jets. I'm starting to think they might be a little better than we thought they would be. I think I had them going 7-10. I think still around 8 or 9 wins. 7, 8, 9 wins is the right ballpark for them. The Steelers looked good, but I'm a little concerned with their defense. You give up 32 points to a Jets team that is not supposed to be very good offensively. In fact, they're supposed to be very bad offensively, according to a lot of people. And you give up 32 points. So that's concerning. But the offense looked good. Rodgers looked good. The offensive line was a bit questionable. He got sacked several times. The Jets were getting to him, so I want to see that shore up. It's a good game between them and Seattle next week. I'm very much looking forward to that one. But next up, we'll move on to the Patriots and the Raiders here. This one was a slower game, not a ton going on. The Patriots really couldn't move the ball. They had some mistakes going on. Drake made an ugly interception at one point. It's a weird one. It's another one I feel like I didn't get enough out of. I think, I got closer to it. I still picked the Patriots to win that game. The closer I got to it, the less confident I was in. The less confident I was in the Patriots, and I should have trusted my gut at the very end and gone with the Raiders. And that's both. It's a credit to both ways. I think the Patriots got a lot of offseason hype, but the closer it got, the more I was concerned about them. And the Raiders, I don't think they're going to blow the doors off. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I don't think they're going on a run. However, they're a team that is no longer a doormat. They have Geno Smith. They have Pete Carroll. They're going to win games. They know what they're doing. And, this is a textbook type of game that they're going to win there. So Raiders did well, and I expect them to compete in just about every game this year. Patriots, tough start for the year. Everyone talked about their easy schedule. They had to take advantage of it. Playing at home against the Raiders in week 1, that's not a gimme. But if you want to have a chance at the playoffs, which I think their fans think they do, those are the games you have to win. You can't drop that. And they go on the road to Miami next week, and they're gonna have to win that one. You start 0-2, you're in a lot of trouble there. So But moving on to the next game, Giants and Commanders here. Another game that didn't have a whole lot going on the whole game. The final score was 21-6. Low scoring affair there in Landover, Maryland. And I feel like I didn't learn enough from this one either. I was expecting to learn a bunch. Maybe I did. The Commanders, this is one I had my concerns with Washington this year, and I still do. But to see them face off against the inferior opponent, or should be inferior opponent, and to kind of handle them all game. They didn't blow them out. 21-6 looks bad, but it wasn't like a walk in the park. But they handled them. They were ahead basically the entire game. It didn't feel like they were ever in danger of losing it. They weren't blowing them out, but just having control of those games is something I expect from good teams, and that's what Washington did. The Giants hung in there, especially defensively. They were able to kind of slow down Washington, but it wasn't enough. The Giants' offense is going to be their rough part all year. They're going to need to work on that. But 21-6, Giants. They head to Dallas next week, and then Washington has a short week. They're heading to Green Bay. This is going to be a great game next week. But let's move on. Jacksonville, Carolina. This game had a big, long weather delay. It ended up ending, an hour or so, I think, into the late game. So I missed part of this one, but really, it was a slower one too. A lot of slow games this week. A lot of lower scoring games. And the Jags were kind of in control most of the game. They were up. It was 3-3 early. They went up 10-3 and never looked back. They built the lead off of there, and Carolina just couldn't sustain the drives. They couldn't score. Bryce Young had 2 picks. He's got to do better. The Panthers have got to do better. Jacksonville looked solid. I like them holding Carolina to 10 points. That's promising for me. And they go to Cincinnati next week. And Cincinnati struggled early in the year, and they always struggle early in the year. They struggled against Cleveland, and that's a game Jacksonville could win next week. So that'll be a big one in Cincinnati. But speaking of the Bengals, we're going to move on to the Bengals and the Browns. And man, what a mess this game was. The Bengals ended up winning it, which, you know what? They don't ask how, they ask how many, and that's a great example here. The Bengals start season slow, and, I think a win is a win for them, considering how they've started recent seasons. So I think you got to be happy with this if you're a Bengals fan. You didn't look great, but you haven't looked great in the first game or two the last few years, and you look fine later in the year. So they got the job done. It wasn't pretty. Burrow only completed 14 passes for 113 yards. That's it. That's tough. They only had 47 yards rushing, basically no offense. Cleveland definitely outgained them by a fairly healthy margin. Several turnovers from Cleveland, a couple crazy deflected interceptions really helped the Bengals. And you know what? Maybe luck is what they finally needed to get over that week 1 hump. But it works out in their favor. However they got it done, they got it done. And they're 1-0. That's really all I have to say. Nothing too crazy to speak out. The Browns, we kind of what we expected. They moved the ball fairly decent with Flacco, and they put up 16 points. Right. The big question was, what are the Bengals going to do? They started slow as usual, but they got the win, which is what matters. And then moving on to the last early game, we got Bucks and Falcons. What a great game this was. This was a blast. Back and forth at the end. It was a little slow going there at times, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, but it really picked up at the end. Several scores. Atlanta taking the lead with just over 2 minutes to go, and then the Baker Mayfield pass to Ibuka. It was just a great finish to this game. It was a blast there. I thought it would be higher scoring. They ended up scoring, a decent amount there at the tail end. But 23-20, the Bucks got it done. I did have the Bucks winning, and they win and cover that spread. And, the Bucks weren't as impressive as I thought they'd be. The Falcons actually impressed me a little bit in this game. But that's concerning to me because I think the Bucks didn't play very well, and they still managed to come on the road and beat the Falcons. That's a tough loss for Atlanta. I think I said it earlier. It's not a must-win game. There is no must-win games in week 1, but you're home against the team that is favored over you to win the division, and you let them come into your house and beat you in week 1. That's a tough recipe for the rest of the year. So tough loss for the Falcons. Good win for the Bucks. Week 1, a lot of these wins, it doesn't matter how they look. All that matters is the record, because week 1 can get ugly for a lot of teams. Week 1 lies a lot of the time. That's a saying. So, it's good of Tampa to go in there and get the win. But moving on, speaking of ugly games, San Fran and Seattle. Purdy had 2 picks in this one. A couple ugly ones in my opinion. And it's like the Niners dominated this game. Not dominated, that's the wrong word. But they had all the possession. Every time you looked up, it felt like the Niners were about to score. But they kept turning the ball over, missing field goals, getting blocked field goals. It was like they were begging to lose this game. And it's a miracle they ended up winning. I did have San Fran winning this game, so I'm glad they did end up getting that done. But man, was it a struggle to get there. But, again, you can't knock them on that. You don't expect those mistakes every week. San Fran was the better team in this game. They got the win. They head to New Orleans next week, where they should start 2-0. So, a good start if they're looking to take over the NFC West. Seattle, tough start to start 0-1 at home against a division rival. No interceptions from Darnold. I don't think he played exceptionally well. He didn't play exceptionally poor. That's just kind of Darnold. They couldn't really get the ground game going. Not very efficient. Kenneth Walker, 10 carries for 20 yards, averaging 2 yards a carry. That's atrocious. Charbonnet averaging 3.9 a carry, still not good. That's the biggest red flag for me in that game. The O-line had its struggles last year, one of the worst O-lines in the league, and it struggled again today. They couldn't get the ground game going. They have a big test in Pittsburgh next week. You don't want to go 0-2. They got to go into Pittsburgh and get a win, but that's going to be tough. I don't know if they're going to do it. We will see. Tennessee, Denver, though. What a weird one. What a weird game. Denver looked bad. They looked bad. It's week 1. Let's say it again. Week 1 lies. But man, Denver struggled. But you know what? I think I've said earlier, good teams can look bad and they find ways to win. And I think I said it was with Washington. Washington didn't look bad, but Denver looked bad. They still found a way to win. I think that's a sign of a good team. You come away, you're like, that felt ugly, that felt gross, what a bad game. But you know what? That's one in the win column. And that's what they did today. They struggled, especially early on. I think it was it 6-3 at halftime, if I'm remembering correctly? No. They actually both had late scores, my bad. 10-9, Denver was up at halftime. But Bo Nix had a couple ugly interceptions, only threw for 176 on it. The ground game was going. Harvey had some good runs. He had a good long 50-yard run, the rookie there. So Denver had some bright spots. They were looking good, but really not much to speak about on them. They struggled, but they're a good team. They'll be fine. Tennessee was impressive. They fought hard. They fought to the end. And I think that Tennessee is a team that's going to give teams trouble all year. They're going to be fighters. Cam Ward looked solid. Completed less than 50% of his passes, which, that's not great. Only 112 yards. But I thought he looked decent for his first game against a very, very good defense. But yeah, we're going to move on now. Texans and Rams, a game that ends 14-9, a really ugly score. The Rams defense really held up in the red zone. As soon as they got onto their own side of the field, it was like they went into lockdown mode. They held the Texans to only 3 field goals and 0 points in the second half. The Rams, on the other hand, they started out pretty sluggish. They picked it up in the second quarter. They looked good to start the third. And they looked pretty solid in the fourth. They were driving. They had a fumble inside about the 15-yard line. They probably would have scored again. So the offense actually started moving for the Rams. Looked good. Defense looked good. Texans did not look great. The defense was fairly solid throughout the game, but the offense, they could not get the ground game going against the Rams. Rams, a team that struggled against the run last year. I know they shorted up with some additions in the offseason, but Texans could not get the run game going, it felt like, and they couldn't really hit any deep passes either. But yeah, ugly game, 14-9, the Rams won. And like I said, with these other games, they don't ask how, they ask how many. The Rams are 1-0, the Texans are 0-1. And then, Packers-Lions. Man, this game right away you could tell. I know I picked the Lions in this one. And you can go back and watch that video. It's one I was split. I was going back and forth, and I ended up picking the Lions. Honestly, just kind of on value. I was like, wow, Lions are underdog. I'll take that. But right off the bat, man, you could tell the Packers are going to win this game. They just looked like the better team. They looked like they wanted it more. The Lions just looked lost. They did not look good at all. I know it's going to take some time with the new coordinators, but the Lions look bad, man. They looked bad. Next week, they're home against Chicago, who plays tomorrow night, so we'll see how the Bears look. Lions cannot go 0-2. They're going to need to win next week at home. Packers looked great. Packers looked very good. There was a lot of talk, and I was like, I want to pump the brakes on hyping them up as, a Super Bowl contender or something like that, just because of the Parsons trade, but they looked good. They looked the part. I would argue they looked as good as any NFC team this week. They might have looked the best out of all NFC teams this week. It's 1 week, so that doesn't mean I have them now as my Super Bowl favorite or anything, but they looked great. The Packers looked very good. Lions looked very bad. I think that's the summary of that game at Lambeau Field. And the Packers, next week, they host Washington, Thursday Night Football. They get back-to-back home games start the year, and they're going to be favored. I think right now they're favored by 3.5. They need to go and win that one there. But great start for the Packers, 1-0. They looked good doing it, and they got a divisional win over the Lions. So we'll see where they go from there. But the night finished out in an insane fashion. The Bills came back and won against the Ravens. And really, this is one of those for Lamar Jackson. You just have to sit back and continue to be frustrated. I mean, the Ravens looked incredible tonight. It's like they couldn't be stopped all night. As you can look, 40 points. They had, I think 230 yards on the ground. Not too much through the air, I think about 200, but man, the Ravens played a near perfect game. A late turnover really hurt, gave the Bills a shot to get back into it. But even then, after missing the 2-point, Ravens got the ball back. I thought there was no chance Bills were getting the stop. They did. I mean, this game was just a blast, and I think I said it leading up to this week. I think this game easily could be an AFC Championship preview, and I think the way these two teams played each other tonight really kind of proves that. I think we'd be lucky to see this game in the AFC Championship game. It'd be a blessing to see this one again, but wow, it's a shame someone had to lose this one, but Josh Allen and the Bills came back. They got it done. They looked great. They get the win, and technically they were underdogs in this one. 1.5-point underdogs. They cover the spread, and they get the upset win. Huge win. They're on the road against the Jets next week, who look decent. The Ravens get a easy bounce-back game home against the Browns next week. We'll see how they do, but let me know what y'all think about your thoughts from week 1.